I'm recording from Cooperation and Nationality, a book by George W. Russell, A.E., and I'm recording the foreword to the book by Patrick Bolger, the Secretary of the Society for Cooperative Studies in Ireland, from St. Patrick's Day in 1982. So he says, if Horace Plunkett was the brains of the emerging Irish cooperative movement, George William Russell, A.E., was assuredly the spirit. Beyond that, who will attempt a description of A.E., that myriad-minded man, poet, painter, theosophist, mystic, practical economist, and cooperative idealist? Oliver St. John Gogarty, Gentle's epitaph of angelic anarchist, is probably a fitting and as inadequate as any other. Plunkett found A.E., a 30-year-old, 30-shilling-a-week clerk in Pym's drapery store, and made him a co-op organiser. And he said, while he outdreams all, none of us have as shrewd business judgment or as nice a sense of humour. In 1905, A.E. became editor of the Irish Homestead, the cooperative weekly, which attained world fame as a farming journal with a literary flair. It was A.E.'s famous address to the co-op delegates in 1909 on the building up of a rural civilization that gave the inspirational impetus for the foundation of the United Irish Women, now the Irish Countrywomen's Association, the following year. In his two books, Cooperation and Nationality, published in 1912, and The National Being in 1916, A.E. develops the rural and urban civilization theme, the synthesis of his ideas on cooperation and his concept of nationhood. Irish men should aspire to carve a Natica out of Ireland, to develop in Irish rural parishes an intensity of life such as had existed in the city-states of ancient Greece and medieval Italy. The seed of Paracelsus is in Patrick's lines. Ireland should have something more than from home rule than a mere duplication of the British bureaucracy. The national being conceived of a design for the development plan of an independent Ireland. Translated into several languages, in India it inspired Rabindranath Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi. In Romania, it led to civil conscription in 1920 after Stambolowski had read A.E. What of Ireland? To what extent is the collective imagination of our people being developed to inspire us towards economic and social progress, a blossoming of the arts, and the fullest expression of nationhood? It was in the belief that every generation of Irishmen should have access to the inspirational writings of George W. Russell, A.E., that the Society of Cooperative Studies in Ireland sought to have Cooperation and Nationality and The National Being republished. Times change and circumstances alter, but the spirit and the inspirational spark transcend. Nations, said A.E., evolve around certain ideals as part of the cosmic plan. The Society is indebted to PMPA Charities Limited, whose generous sponsorship makes the republication of these books possible. All praise to Irish Academic Press for undertaking the republication and executing it with taste and style. And just I'll read the contents of this book, which is The Cooperation and Nationality. The first chapter is The Problems of Rural Life. Number 2, Past and Present Conditions. 3, Need for Agricultural Revolution. 4, Rise of Agricultural Cooperation. 5, Building up a New Social Order. 6, Town and Country. 7, Organised Communities and Political Life. 8, The Creation of Citizens. 9, Women on the Land. 10, Union of Men and Women's Workers. 11, Farmers and the State. 12, Ideals of the New Rural Society. And 13, Life Finding Its Level. That's page 98. So it's not a long read, but it's certainly inspirational. It's 103 pages, and it's a beautiful piece of work by George W. Russell. I'd recommend it to anybody, especially at this time in Ireland when the values and the spiritual values and the economic values are really at war with each other, and with the proposition of an even more controlled state by cooperatives, or not cooperatives, but the multinationals with their digital ID and wanting to control everything. Yeah. So anyway, I just would recommend it to anybody who's interested in our society, our nation, our farmers, our urban workers, our pensioners, our children, our women. We need to have, and we've been dragged. George W. Russell died in the 1930s, but he spent his time cycling from town to town in Ireland, educating people, the farmers particularly, to build up a cooperative way of working with each other within a community, so they could order what the materials they needed together and buy at a wholesale price and get a decent price from what he called the middleman, or even to put out the middleman, the Gombe man, he called him, who was taking the profits. And so he wanted this farming society that was created, selling their products and creating products and having the freedom to use their skills and creativity, build their self-respect through what they could produce with their own hands on their own land, without the British rule or any other rule, or the state even, to let creativity flow. He wanted halls where people could gather to socialise, talk, share skills, build, arts, galleries, places to read, places to dance, places to sing, to communicate and get together. And we're lucky in Ireland to have such a strong sense of our music and the background we come from. And again, that would have been established back at that time with the Gaelic, revival that happened at that time, as well as the arts. He was a wonderful artist. All the British people who had money were collectors of his art. It's very beautiful. I happened to see a whole exhibition of it in Trinity College Provost House years ago, and it's very fabulous, and it shouldn't be hid. He should have a place for his work in the National Gallery in Ireland. It's disgraceful that there's none of his work there. It should be available to the public. He is a national treasure, and really was a national treasure. And he educated people and helped people with their banking, with their accounts. He was involved in setting up the He was the first play that was done by the National Theatre called Deirdre, and he played a part in it. He painted the props for it and built the props for it. He was just so talented right across the board at doing. He worked very briefly for Guinness's and found it an abhorrence to be there. And he went on to work for Pym's draper shop. He's self-educated. I think the only record of his education would be when he went briefly to an art school. But he was a brilliant poet, and he was involved with, very much interested in Indian philosophy, and studied the Indian philosophy, particularly the Bhagavad Gita, the Divine Song, which is a guide for life, and was involved with and a leader in the Hermetic Society in Dublin for years. About 30 years, yeah. So yeah, he's a very interesting person in Irish life, and it's really unfortunate that he has not been given the recognition he deserves. As you heard there, he was involved with the creation of the Irish Countrywomen's Association, which gave them an opportunity to build, create, share their products, and set up their own organisation to be able to fund their lifestyle. Now, he did have a lot of sympathy for the women who had to work so hard just to keep society alive, and the quality of the feminine to nurture life, rather than, as we see today, the level of efforts that are going on to destroy it. The nurture is so important at every level, and the other beautiful thing about the man, and I love reading his work because it's so inspirational, there was no judgment in him. You know, the whole thing of, we've all made mistakes, and, looking back, I'd have loved to have had his vision when I was younger, but I didn't. And what can I say other than, forgiveness has to be part of it. And we can all find fault with each other. But this man looked for the good. He looked for the beauty, and he abhorred the ugly, whether it was in language or in behaviour or in any way. And one of the other things, it's not mentioned in, this cooperative and nationality book, is more about his work with the farmers and the rural Ireland. But the other works that he's done and written about, and was very influential, was with the lockout in 1913-14, and went to England to speak to the elites, as we call them now, who were controlling the factories and treating people very badly. And they closed down the factories and left people in poverty on the street. And AE went to England to appeal to these people who owned just about everything at that stage, to realise that their day will come. And it did come when they wouldn't survive because of the way they were abusing the resources that were taken out of Ireland. So I could talk about him for a good while, but spiritually he's inspiring. Philosophically he's inspiring. He's practical and he's spiritual, and it's rare to see a mix like that. And the fact that he's not getting the recognition that I think he so deserves. And I read in the census years ago that when he was asked what religion he was, he said he was eclectic. In other words, he wasn't particularly enamoured with any of them, but at the same time had respect for all of it, and could see the reasons and the purpose for everybody, whatever their belief system. But he could see the bigger picture. and that the Spirit is in all of us, the divine Spirit is in all of us, the uniqueness is in all of us. And it's only through the possibility of being able to explore that and having the freedom to do that can we continue to be creative and continue to do the music of what happens. AI can't do that. AI will only copy, can only copy. But the inspiration that comes up from within the heart when you feel it is different from what you can copy or what you can, it just doesn't touch that. And this concept of controlling everybody and everything within a digital control system and managing everybody and everything they do will have the effect, I think, of crushing that unique spirituality and the dance and the joy and the pleasure that is so available here. And you can even see it in the protests that just happened. You can see, the very genuine, and obviously there'll always be rogues in every gathering. You have to accept that too. But you can see the quality of the people of Ireland and the way they pull together and the way they want to pull together and the way they use the song and the dance and as we call it, the crack, to keep one another going. It's so essential. The music and the arts and the literature and painting and all of it is so essential because it's recognising the beauty. It rises above the drudgery that sometimes we have to go through just with our own health or with whatever, the economy or, whoever is trying to take advantage, or whoever has betrayed or let us down, or, that we have to keep going. We have to rise again. We have to continue to rise because we have it in us to do it. We've done it time and time again. But this man really helped it in rural Ireland as he travelled around the countryside preaching how to do the farm, how to organise themselves, how to get together. And there was a story told of a fellow that hadn't been at Mass on Sunday, and the priest confronted him about it, and he said he was listening to AE, and the priest said, so that was as good as being at Mass. So whether you're a Mass goer or not, it was being a big thing not to be there once upon a time in Ireland. It's not so big anymore. But yeah, so thanks for listening to me now, and I would strongly recommend that you reach out to this being. The National Being is a great book as well, for especially now in Ireland when we really do need people that have a concept of spirituality. It's not enough to just be able to do the economics or fill out the forms. We need to remind ourselves that we're spirit first. And the practicalities that we have to get involved in are necessary. But the way will be made, but not without reaching to whatever your tradition is, whatever your value is, however you reach to that divine spark within yourself, the Isa Christ in your heart. Isa means, the Isa is this, what's here in this moment in time, the music, what's happening in this moment, and the Christ is the heart. Cree is the heart in Irish, the Gaelic language. So Isa Christ is what's in our hearts in this moment, is what it's speaking to. And thanks very much. Slán go fóill.